Welcome to our Zoom attendees. We are so glad that you chose to join us for today's holiday book showcase. My name is Becky Robinson, and we'll get started soon with this esteemed panel of authors. So welcome, authors. So glad to have you. So as you're coming in today, I hope you'll take a moment to find the chat, and we would love to know exactly what it is that drew you to today's event. We're experimenting with new ways of helping authors get exposure during this pandemic time, and so we would love to know what drew you specifically to today's event, and also we're curious about what you think of the format of featuring a number of different authors in one event. So I hope you'll take a moment and say hello in the chat. Tell us where you're calling in from, and please use the drop-down menu to select all panelists and attendees, because that will ensure that everyone can see your comments to us in the chat today. I do want to take a moment to let you know that we are recording today's event, and you will be able to get the recording both on Facebook and on our YouTube channel. If you're not already following Weaving Influence on YouTube, we would love to have you follow us there, and we will be sending a follow-up email after today's event. So for those who are attending live, we do have some special giveaways and gifts, and we'll be contacting you after today's event. One of the requirements of winning one of our prizes is that you must be here live. So since you're here live, you are fortunate, and hopefully you'll win a prize today. So thanks to all of you who are greeting me in the chat. It looks like we have folks from all over, including England and Nashville and the mountains of East Tennessee. Hi, Denise in Loveland, Ohio, and someone in Minnesota. One of our authors is from Minnesota. We've got some people from California and Texas, Colorado. So it's great to see so many of you joining today. If you were on last week's event, you know that our format is that each author will share about 7 minutes on their book. At the end, we will have some time for questions. So I would invite you throughout the event, if you have a question for one of our authors, to go ahead and add that in the chat. And then toward the end of the hour, we'll get back to your questions. So we're so thrilled to get started, and I would invite my friend Eileen McDargh to share first.
Thank you so much, Becky, and I'm thrilled to be here. Good morning from California. It's getting an afternoon on the East Coast, and to Reginald from England. Welcome. We're so glad you could join us. My name is Eileen McDargh. My book, as you saw in there, is Burnout to Breakthrough: Building Resilience to Refuel, Recharge, and Reclaim What Matters. I am a management consultant. I've had my own business for 40 years, which is kind of hard to believe because I'm only 22. I don't know how that happened. But in any event, I have been intrigued with communication leadership and this whole issue of work-life balance, integration, and resilience. I've been studying resilience for about the last 15 to 20 years. And what prompted me to write this book, this is my 8th book, is that as I've been studying this resilience, and I speak all over the world. Well, I used to before we got locked down. I also take management groups away and beat them up so that they can figure out who they want to be when they grow up. But what's so fascinating to me was that in the last 2.5 to 3 years, every time I was asked to speak about resilience, it was in the context of burnout. And then in May of last year, 2019, the World Health Organization finally declared burnout to be a global occupational hazard. And when I do the research, it's everywhere. It doesn't matter whether you're from Malaysia to Manhattan, from Kenya to Korea. People were experiencing this overwhelming exhaustion, which is exactly how it is defined. So I decided enough of this. I need to write this book. What's interesting though, is I turned the final manuscript in December of 2019. And 2 months later, the world drastically changed. And this issue of burnout and resilience became even larger, which is good news for a book. It's bad news for us. So what I intended to do with this book, and I hope you will find it, I wanted it to be very accessible. And so I have kind of a process that I take people through. First is to define what burnout is and to give you a quiz so you can decide, oh, does this sound like me, or what is this like? And then we move from, in order to move from burnout to breakthrough, you got to break out. So the process is just like what you see if you come to a railroad crossing and it says to stop, look, and listen. That's what I want my readers to do. I want you to stop. I want you to look at what you're doing. I want you to listen with your head and with your heart. And I will move you through this process. So, in this process of breaking out, you first have to figure out what it is that is prompting this feeling of exhaustion, mental, physical, emotional exhaustion, trying to keep everything going in balance. And now that we've had many of us working from our home environments, we've just added the kids that you're trying to homeschool over there, to perhaps sharing the kitchen table with your best beloved. So, there's a lot that's going on. So I look at it in two ways. First is, what is it that's happening to me? What is it that is prompting? And I call it a prompt. What is it that is prompting me to begin to lose that energy? And by the way, I define resiliency as the ability to grow through challenge or opportunity. It's not bouncing back. Every time someone says go to the new normal, there's not a new normal, and there is no going back. You cannot step in the same water twice. So what I want to do is say, how can I find what's happening and how do I grow through it? The other thing is that resiliency is ultimately energy management. What's giving me energy? What's depleting my energy? And burnout is when we are depleted. So I want to look at what do we do personally, but I also don't want to let organizations off the hook. So I also want to look at what managers and leaders can do in an organization that either gives people energy or depletes that energy. And what's fascinating, when I've done some virtual sessions on this, and well, I don't care whether it's in the Philippines or whether it's in Oregon. Those are the last two that I did. There's a lot that happens organizationally that we need to step back and say, whoa, time out. Do you realize what's absolutely happening? So when I break out, then the breakthrough is to say, what is it that I'm thinking with my head? Because everything happens here. Then not only what am I thinking, what's my heart telling me? You know, this is an incredible energy resource, 60,000 miles of vein, capillaries, and arteries within the human heart. And we know now that the heart is the little brain. They talk to each other. So how well am I listening to my heart? What is it telling me? Who gives me energy when I connect with them? Who drains my energy? And for leaders and managers, that's a great question to ask yourself. Do you give energy to the people that you have around you, or do you drain it? And then, how do I connect with my hands? What am I doing? Action is the antidote for anxiety. If I become anxious, put something in motion. So the book offers some ideas of how you can put things in motion. The fourth way in which we create connection is absolutely through humor, through laughter. And when I think of humor, you know, laughter is the shortest distance between two people. If I want to create a connection, if I can get you to laugh with me, we just created a small connection. And all of us know, in this age of pandemic, how many of us have seen those crazy memes that come across, the crazy ads, the little YouTube videos that make you step back and at least get a different sense of perspective on this craziness that's going on. In fact, someone just sent me one the other day. It said, you know, at the end of a lockdown, you can come out one of four things. You can either come out as a monk, a chunk, a hunk, or a drunk. So choose carefully. And then the last piece we look at in the book is the power of alignment, of purpose. Why are you here? You know, in the midst of the Holocaust, Viktor Frankl wrote that man, and I'll add, or woman, can survive any what if they have a why. I believe so deeply that being able to be centered on a purpose that's bigger than you are is a way to help you move through burnout, because you say, I'm not just taking space on this universe. There is a reason for why I am here. So that's basically what you find in the book. And I would love to be able to talk with you about this. And obviously, it's a great gift, I think, for everyone, because resilience is not a one-time skill, it's cultivated. We have to grow it. And different things are going to push us off course through all of our life. So it's a never-ending ability to claim our own future and to reclaim what matters most. So I think we can turn it on to the next speaker, who is?
We have Esther Derby next.
There you go, Esther. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. And I'm going to buy a copy of your book, and I hope I'm going to end this pandemic as not a chunk or a drunk or not a monk. So anyway, I am also a management consultant, and I work with companies to help them become both more effective and more humane. So that always involves change. So I'm kind of curious, what has your experience been with change? Has it been positive, or has it been negative? Put it in the chat. Let's put it in the chat. Both. So some has been okay and some has not been great. Well, I think that if we pay attention, we can make it more likely that change is going to be a positive experience. So I want to tell you a little story about when I first started thinking about change. I was actually in my first job as a professional programmer, because I started my career as a programmer. And the day before my first program was going to go into production, I overheard a conversation between the head of the company and the chief estimator for the company. He agreed that my program was correct, and it was accurate, and it was fast. And he hated it. He absolutely hated it, because it was going to dramatically change his job and the way he went about doing his work. And at that point, I realized, even though my job didn't have anything to do with change management, and it wasn't in my job description, that my job actually was changing the way people did their work. So I started paying a lot of attention to it, to change. And my guess is that even if your job doesn't have change management in the title, you also are involved in change. It might be trying to achieve business agility for a large enterprise. It might be trying to create a learning culture in your company. It might be trying to get people to collaborate across department lines. It might be as small as trying to influence your team to do something differently, to try a different way of working. So all of these involve change, changing the way people think, the way they collaborate, the way they do their day-to-day work, and how they deliver value to customers. So what I often see is that people try to tell people to change, do it differently, here's the new process, or they try to sell change. They try to persuade people. The trouble is that a lot of big changes involve loss. It may be a loss of a routine, which is temporary. It may be a loss of status, or it may be a loss of your identity. You know, you may have a professional identity, and this change is stripping that away from you. It may be that your company is changing, and you had an association with that company. Persuasion and telling and selling isn't enough in those cases. It doesn't account for the loss that people experience. So when I see people using traditional change methods, I come across four big buckets of problems. One is that people don't want to change with the enthusiasm and speed that people wish they would. This is often termed resistance. Sometimes people spend a lot of money on a new methodology or a new process, and nothing really changes in the end. People complain that it's really hard to get people on board. And they find out that the one standardized process that they designed to fix everything for all sorts of teams doesn't actually fit anyone very well. I believe that when we attend to the people and the systems, these sorts of problems fade away. These sorts of problems just become far less salient. But we have to focus both on supporting the people and understanding the system. So my book, which I have here somewhere, offers an alternative approach to change. One that works by attraction and by nurturing change rather than trying to push change or drive change. And it's built around 7 rules. They're actually heuristics, guides for problem solving, that help you work through a change in a way that attends to the system and the people. So I want to share now so that I can give you just a little flavor of each one of those rules. So we'll see how this works because it worked 5 minutes ago.
Do you need some help, Esther?
No, I just need to find my desk, the proper desktop.
Ah, got it. Okay.
Yeah.
We're here.
You're here to help. Okay, here we go. There we go. So 7 rules. These are not a stepwise process. These are guides to problem solving. So you don't have to do them in one order, but I do think this is a good one to start with. Strive for congruence, which is balancing your own needs, the needs of other people, and the context that is driving the change. Because when these things are in balance, we can access our best self and our best problem solving. This is really the foundation for integrity and open communication in a time of change. And that's super important when we're in change because people are feeling lost and they're subject to rumors, they're subject to high emotions. So strive for congruence. Honor the past, the present, and the people. When people feel something is being taken away from them, they hold on to it. So paradoxically, honoring the past helps them let go of it. People don't like to hear that they've been doing things wrong for X number of years. They don't like hearing that whatever they have done in the past is worthless now. So honor that. There's often stuff you can build on in there too. So the 3rd rule, not necessarily 3rd in order, is assess what is. People tend to think that change starts with a vision. But in my experience, if you focus only on the vision and don't address what is, if you don't address the factors that are contributing to the pattern that is the problem you're trying to get rid of, that problem's going to reassert itself. So you really have to attend to what is your current situation and just accept what it is and then work with it. Look at the factors that are contributing to holding that in place because that's the only way to get rid of it. Putting something on top won't make the pattern go away. Attend to networks. Our webs of relationship dramatically influence what we think and what we do. So in situations of change, we should take advantage of that because change, like work, happens through webs of relationship. Networks are a way to spread ideas quickly, diffuse ideas quickly through an organization. Experiment. Big changes can feel like an existential threat. They cause a lot of disruption, and when they go wrong, they cause a big mess. So do tiny changes. Little tiny changes that don't freak people out. They limit the disruption. And if something goes wrong, you can clean it up easily. And they allow people to learn. Guide and allow for variation. It's really difficult to anticipate every situation that you're going to encounter when you look to change something. If you're rolling out a new process or you're trying to get people to behave in a different way. So I think it's really important to be clear on what the outcome you want is, but then have some guardrails within which people can evolve their own local variations. When you do this, you get both creativity and ownership. The 7th rule, which I think is another one that's useful to start with and keep at the whole time, is to use yourself, because you in many ways are your most important tool for change. Turn up your curiosity, use your powers of observation, and listen, because when you really listen to people, when you empathize with them, you don't have to fix them, you just have to acknowledge that their response is valid, when you listen to them, they are much more likely to listen to you. So these rules, Becky, can you stop my share? My cursor's missing. My cursor's lost somewhere. So these rules are elaborated in the book, and there's examples of how they can be used and examples of what happens when you don't pay attention to them. I believe, and it's been my experience, that when we focus on supporting people, meeting them where they are, not dismissing their responses, but being curious about their responses, when we acknowledge that change does involve a downside, there's always a negative space, and we support people to make a change, we have much better results. But we also have to attend to the system which drives behavior and make adjustments there so that the system is congruent with what the change is we want to see. And that's what my book does. It brings us to the upside of change. So it's no longer such a negative or such a disruptive experience, but one that brings creativity and allows ownership as people go through change. And with that, I'll hand it off to Julie.
Thank you, Esther and Eileen. My gosh, I've been so busy taking notes here and learning and getting ready to order books. And thank you to Weaving Influence for hosting this. And of course, all of you for joining us. I'm Julie Winkle Giulioni, and I'm I guess at the end of the day, a champion for workplace growth and development. I'm a speaker, an author, and a consultant, and I have a training and development firm here in Southern California. And our book is Help Them Grow or Watch Them Go: Career Conversations Organizations Need and Employees Want. And Help Them Grow or Watch Them Go has become a bit of a leadership mainstay. We've sold about 125,000 copies. It's been translated into 7 different languages, and it's used by hundreds of organizations worldwide, organizations like Microsoft and Honda and Macy's. And I guess, you know, if I boil down the book, which is a short read, in fact, my son refers to it as the pamphlet, because it really does kind of net it out. The big idea in Help Them Grow is that we have over the years completely overcomplicated this idea of career development. You know, we've overlaid it with processes and paperwork and programs, and we've aligned it with this idea of promotion. We've totally overcomplicated it. And in the process, what's happened is managers, leaders in organizations have become a little bit immobilized. And as a result, it's just, you know, career development in most organizations isn't happening. It tends to fall to the bottom of all employee opinion surveys, climate surveys, and that kind of thing. And so fundamentally, when we strip it back, the truth is that career development is a lot simpler. It's even kind of intuitive because we've all been growing and learning and developing our whole lives. We know deep down what works and what doesn't. And so let me just ask you, let's tap the wisdom of this group using chat. You probably had tons of managers and supervisors and coaches and mentors, professors who've helped you to grow and develop. When you think of who those folks are, I'm sure a smile comes across your face. You're going through that mental carousel. But when you think about it, what exactly did they do that helped you to grow, that helped you to become who you are and capable of what you can do today? Just type a couple of words there, if you would, in the chat. So Keith, yeah, listen, guide allows you to make mistakes. Such a biggie, isn't it? So much learning comes through falling down, getting up, and, you know, brushing yourself off. Encouragement to rest, absolutely. John, you've had a mentor with a service leader ethic. I love that. Who was there for you, in service of you and your growth. Listening, Denise, encouraging, accountability, that's key. Sometimes you need that kick in the pants or somebody to remind you of what your goals are. Teaching, thank you, Pamela. Seeing the seed within. Oh, Ed, I love that. You know, I do this with thousands of leaders around the world. And one of the things that's so powerful that I hear time and again is they saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. You know, they had that vision for me and held that even when I wasn't quite there. Encouragement, no judgment. I tried the tears after failure. I love that test. So, you know, when you look at this, it's not about programs. It's not about positions. It's really, at the end of the day, career development is a relationship, and it's a relationship that plays out through conversation. You know, so much of what you talked about in chat really is about the listening, the encouragement, the conversations. So fundamentally, you know, careers really are, in my opinion, developed one conversation at a time over time. And that layering of the relationship, the conversation, the insights, the momentum, the action, the feedback over time is what promotes growth. But the problem is, or the challenge is, that last word there on the slide, time, because busy managers have woefully little of it to invest in development. And so when my co-author Beverly Kay and I sat down to write the book, what we knew we needed to do was create a framework that was going to operate at the speed of business, that was going to meet the needs of busy managers and work within the cadence of this ever quickening pace within the workplace. And so we developed this simple framework, a three-part framework, to think about the kinds of conversations managers and leaders can have with employees and the kinds of questions they can use to prompt those conversations. And so I'd like to introduce you to that framework just briefly with a quick self-assessment. So what you'll see on the slide there are 18 questions. Take a quick look, and we're only going to be able to take 20 or 30 seconds for you to do a quick scan and pick maybe 3 that speak to you. You know, something about them interests you. Maybe you want to ask these questions of others, or maybe you'd love for somebody to ask you 1 or 2 of those questions. Or, you know, there are just a couple of key words in there that sort of capture your imagination. I'll give you a couple of seconds to glance over that and take a look at which of those questions speak to you. And as you're doing that, consider the colors of the questions that you've selected. Are you gravitating toward one color, a green or yellow or the white? Or maybe you have a couple of different colors showing up. Or maybe you got a good old rainbow of all of them. Take just a moment, if you would. Oh, John, I love that question too. When do you feel most alive? Absolutely. All right, and just very quickly, oh, thank you, Eileen. Yeah, we've got some great questions. In fact, in the book, there are about, there are about 100 questions in the book that can start these conversations. Real fast in chat, would you just type what color or colors came up for you? Green, Keith, thank you. Green and white, Ed, any others? Green, you know, green is the one that tends to be most popular. It's playing out here now. So let me just tell you what that means. It points to one of the 3 elements of our framework. So the green questions that were popular with so many of you are about hindsight. They're the questions that help leaders, help employees look backward and inward at where they've been, what they've done, what they love, what they're great at, what they want to do, what they don't want to do in some cases. Yellow, generally not our most popular question, are foresight. They're about looking outward and forward at what are the needs of the organization? Where's our industry going? You know, even the bigger picture questions about the economics and geopolitical issues and environmental issues that act as a guardrail for sustainable career development. And then finally, there's insight, where hindsight and foresight intersect. That's insight, and that's a sweet spot to be mined for possibilities and actions to move forward and learning. And this framework works, on the big conversations. It can guide great, annual conversations, more ad hoc, and even one of those questions asked with the spirit of curiosity. It's development. And so the book has about 100 questions. It offers a framework for moving from conversation to action, and really gives a good, roadmap or a guide for success for managers and leaders who want to help those around them grow. So with that, I'm excited to hear from our next speaker, Nate Regier, and his book, Seeing People Through.
Thank you, Julie. I'm so inspired. I can see how some of those questions will be so beneficial for the next meeting I have with my team. I'm really excited for that, and thank you. It is great to be here, and I also want to join everyone else in thanking Weaving Influence for this wonderful opportunity to join you and to learn from other authors. I'm so glad to be part of this and glad to be with you today. I want to share a couple slides here and share with you a little bit about my book, Seeing People Through, and tell you a little bit about myself. I am the CEO of Next Element Consulting, and we're a global leadership training and consulting firm. We started in 2008, and our passion is bringing more compassion to the workplace. And I want to share with you a little bit about my book, Seeing People Through, Unleash Your Leadership Potential with the Process Communication Model. So why did I write this book? And what is this really about? I have to show you some pictures of me as a kid. This is me growing up in Africa. My parents were missionaries in the Mennonite church, and I love to play with dirt. And it's still my favorite thing to do, is to work in the yard and play with dirt. And I look really happy here, and I was happy most of my life. But one thing most people don't know about me is that my personality type did not fit in with my family, with the people around me. And people looked at me growing up like I was like I was an alien. And when I came across this quote by Einstein, I really resonated with it, that everybody is a genius. But if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing it's stupid. And when I discovered the process communication model, it changed everything for me and how I saw myself, and really ignited a mission to help others with the same. Why this book? Because leadership is evolving. Leadership and matters so much more than it ever did, and it's evolving. And now more than ever, leadership is our ability to leverage the diversity within us and the diversity around us towards shared goals. And that diversity is growing every single day, and leaders need good tools and good skills to be able to do that. Relationships matter the most. We've heard this from all of our authors so far. The common theme here is relationships matter, and how we talk to each other matters. I think real transformation happens within relationships, and it happens through communication. So we need great tools to be able to hone our ability to have the activity of communication. That's a daily discipline. It's something so important for us to do. And on the other side of that, miscommunication wastes so much energy. It's estimated by some experts that only about 10 to 15% of most interactions are actually effective communication. And the rest is either something else or it's miscommunication. And I believe that learning about personality differences or any kind of diversity really is worthless unless we go the next mile and learn how to communicate effectively with them. So this book is more than just an analysis of how we communicate and miscommunicate, but it's really a step-by-step guide to help get back on track when it comes to personality and miscommunication. In 2013, it was the first time I ever presented in a national conference on this concept of diversity in personality. I was at the SHRM National Diversity and Inclusion Conference, and I had been accepted to present on this topic of personality, diversity, and discrimination in the workplace. I didn't know if anybody would even show up or care about it, and the room was packed with over 100 D&I experts from or representatives from their companies. And after the workshop, I just was inundated with people that came up and said, first of all, I had no idea how important personality was as a factor of diversity. And the second thing was, they were just stunned by how big a difference it makes in the workplace and how it overlapped with so many other areas. So I think personality, my belief is that personality diversity is not one of these things to just be figured out, but it's truly an opportunity for us to be more and see more and do more. And I know this is a mantra you'll hear from Becky every day if you spend time with her. It matters how you show up. And I think as leaders, it does not require us to change. And leadership adaptability and agility is not about changing into something that we aren't. It's about growing more fully into ourselves. And this book shows you how to do that. Who did I write this book for? Well, I did write it specifically for some groups, although I think it applies much more broadly. Definitely any leader who wants to have better people skills. You know, leaders are promoted for their IQ, but they generally fail or succeed because of their emotional intelligence, people skills. Seasoned leaders who want to go to good to great and are realizing that they have to up their skills in order to connect with people better in today's world would definitely benefit. Any organization looking for better inclusion frameworks can really start to tackle what it means to include all personality types in the workplace. And then anyone who wants to grow more fully into their potential. And finally, if you want to become a better communicator, this book is definitely a great first step to do that. The title, some people like to talk about their titles, some don't, but I need to share with you that our title was inspired. Seeing People Through was inspired by a fortune cookie. And you can read the whole story in the introduction. It really is quite fascinating. But here's what the fortune cookie said, and this is how we knew that this was going to be the title of the book. It said that the intention is not to see through people. The intention is to see people through. Personality is not about figuring people out and maneuvering to get what you want. Personality is really an opportunity to step up and be more responsible and truly increase our leadership skills. And so what I hope to accomplish in this book is to give leaders a toolkit to maximize their personality and close that knowing doing gap, and then do the same for the people that they lead. I also want to elevate awareness of the most effective model of communication I've ever used in my career, called the process communication model. It's been around for 40 years, and it's really quite a remarkable model. I didn't develop it. I just feel very fortunate and lucky to have learned it and practice it. This is the developer of the model, Dr. Taby Kaler, and he's used a couple ways to describe it. He says that this model is the science of communication. It's the GPS of relationships and the MRI of personality structure. So this book gives leaders a way to understand and apply their personalities in much, much deeper and more practical ways than they've done before, and to help others do the same. I'm certainly excited to be involved in conversations. And so one of the things we're offering this year is, if you're doing a book study on my book, I want to join you. And I would love to zoom in on one of your conversations. No charge, no strings attached. Just would love to make myself available and be part of your conversation. And then also for people that are interested in assessments, we do offer a comprehensive leadership assessment where people can understand how their personality impacts their leadership, and get insight into some really, really critical areas of how personality connects to things like unconscious bias, communication skills, receiving 360-degree feedback, moving from burnout to breakthrough. And it's fully integrated with the book and also with the facilitator's guide. So with that, I am so delighted again to have this opportunity to share with you about seeing people through, how to unleash your leadership potential with the process communication model. And I'd like to pass it now to Ed Adams and Ed Frauenheim.
Thanks very much, Nate. I'm Ed Frauenheim.
And I'm Ed Adams.
And then you're supposed to say, we're the co-authors, Ed.
And we're the co-authors of Reinventing Masculinity, the Liberating Power of Compassion and Connection.
We also believe that two Eds are better than one. At least we hope so. And we're going to tell the story of our book today, and then offer you all a musical treat. For me, this story of this book begins when I was about 12. I don't have the picture like Nate did of myself at that age, but as I was coming into adulthood, I realized I didn't fit the man mold very well. You're supposed to be a strong guy. Well, I was skinny. I lost my first fist fight and my only fist fight in 6th grade when you're supposed to be a dominant aggressor. And then as I got into the work world, I didn't get very far in the rat race, not very high up the corporate ladder. So I've struggled personally with conventional ideas of manhood, what we call in our book confined masculinity. Besides this personal motivation, I've also had what you could call a professional fascination. I've been a business writer for about the last 25 years, mostly focused on workplace culture. I currently work at Great Place to Work, research and consulting firm. And what I noticed was a disconnect. Over in the popular culture in the last couple of years, in the wake of the Me Too movement especially, there's been a controversy raging about the right way to be a man. You saw it around the Gillette ad, around calling men out for bullying, and is that kind of beating up men who are traditional and unfair. But over in the business world that I was observing and documenting, a quiet consensus was growing that success today for men means showing up in new ways. For example, it's no longer okay to be blind to your unconscious bias. We have to be aware of our advantages as men and actually show up as allies to those less fortunate historically. It's no longer okay to be a know-it-all, but we need to become learn-it-alls, as Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella puts it. And it's no longer going to serve you to be a barking boss, but rather to become a collaborative, emotionally intelligent leader who can create psychological safety. So these were the new things showing up for men at work. And I had a third motivation that you could call a public interest goal. I believe that men today have to have a global mindset, a sense of connectedness with all people and the planet if we're going to survive as a species. So those are sort of the motivations for me behind the book. And with that, let me turn things over to the other Ed.
Thank you, Ed. It was great collaborating with you on our book. Again, let me tell you that my name is Dr. Ed Adams. I'm a clinical psychologist in New Jersey with decades of experience now of working with men and men in couples. I'm on my own personal journey. I founded a nonprofit organization called Men Mentoring Men. It's designed to support men to live full and happier lives and more meaningful lives. I'm also past president of Division 51 of the American Psychological Association, which is devoted to the study of men and masculinities. Parallel in that career, I'm a professional artist with painting and sculpture. I'm in museums and private collections. I mention that because some of my art is in our book. Now I want to talk to you about the intention of the book, Reinventing Masculinity, the Liberating Power of Compassion and Connection. We all see the continuous pain and darkness every day around us. It's the visible part of our social iceberg that is posing a threat to all of us and perhaps to our own survival. The visible misery is kept afloat by the parts that we can't see that are underneath the iceberg. And Ed and I believe that much of what is contained in the part we can't see is our notion of what it means to be a man or masculine, what it means to be masculine. In our book, we talk about confined masculinity, as Ed mentioned. It's a manhood that informs men to be dominant, aggressive, even violent, non-revealing of emotion, stoic, disconnected, individualistic, binary in their thinking, and define success as acquiring money and status. Now, this model of masculinity results in men being physically unhealthy, lonely, unhappy, discontented, angry, and very tribal. So we believe that there is a dramatic need for change in the way that we perceive men and masculinities. We say masculinities because there are many ways of being a man. In our book, we urge the reclaiming of compassion as a masculine trait and a expansion of the idea of connection to the larger world, both other people as well as the natural world. Our book describes the problems that men and women face, but we also offer a concrete and sustainable way to positively change. We offer what we call the 5 C's, which are curiosity, courage, compassion, connection, and commitment. Our book describes these in full detail. As you know, some books are made into films, some books even made into plays. We've had the good fortune of our book being Reinventing Masculinity, being turned into a song. And this song was written by Stephen Seskin. He is a songwriter and performer who has written 7 #1 songs to his credit. The song itself was inspired by the book and was debuted only days ago. Ed Frauenheim and I hope that the song will explain our book to you. So we hope you enjoy the song entitled That Kind of Man.
That kind of man. I grew up with a dad who never cried, he was too ashamed to. Said, what would people think? I'll just have another drink, chase away my blues. By day he put on a good show, kept it bottled up so nobody would know that underneath the surface he was feeling worthless. Died of a heart attack at 52. I don't wanna be that kind of man. No, I don't. I'm trying to turn the page on the story I was raised on. All I've been taught since time began. Wanna be strong enough to be tender, brave enough to admit when I am wrong. A man not afraid to ask for help when I'm barely holding on. I just wanna be that kind of man. No more seeking perfection these days. I'm longing for deep connection, friendships I can trust, honesty's a must, especially with myself. For so long I was caught up in an image that someone else thought of. Rigid as can be, I'm finally breaking free. Done living my life for someone else. I don't wanna be that kind of man. No, I don't. I'm trying to turn the page on the story I was raised on. All I've been taught since time began. Wanna be strong enough to be tender.
So in the so that we can get to our final authors, we're going to stop the song there, but we have put the YouTube link into the chat, and we would encourage you all to listen to the whole song and share it with the men in your life that you love. Thank you, Ed, and we're going to invite David and Victoria to share next. David and Victoria.
Yeah, we're coming.
All right, we'd love to see your cameras too.
There. Are we on?
You are here, yes.
All right, thank you very much. Well, how inspiring this has been. Like, we're going to be talking about our book. We, as Becky calls us, the fiction writers, the fun writers. We can go back to our view and ignore this one slide. We'll show you some more slides later. We're a husband and wife team who partner in the creation of tales that we hope will capture your imagination. We apparently have been blessed with not apparently, we have been blessed with a rich international family backgrounds and live in different cultures, and we learn several languages. So we strive to bring to our writing a broad understanding of human nature. David is a producer, director, and actor who has been involved in films, television, and theater and commercials for many years. He wrote his first play when he first entered the field of theater arts, and has been writing poetry, short stories, and screenplays for a long time. Victoria, I was born in Mexico City and grew up in a family of artists and storytellers. And I grew up collaborating with them in the creation of screenplays, plays, and novels. I wrote and staged my first play at the age of 14. And this creative practice kind of propelled me into my lifelong passion of teaching, or I used to call it storytelling. And so we have been together for over 45 years. And so we want to take a moment to thank Weaving Influence and Becky and Aubrey and Christy Kirk, who we have been working with the Amazon advertising. And if you see behind us, we have our trilogy, which is the Perils of a Reluctant Psychic, which was the first books that we published. And we have been extremely successful as a result of Weaving Influence. So we thank you. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to David, who will tell you a little bit about this, our last child, this book, a science fiction book that we just finished writing.
Well, hello. So this is the fiction part of the program. Our book, Ascension, KELAHYA, Unbound, falls into the category of a space opera. For those of you who don't know what that is, think Star Wars or Martian Chronicles or some of the Isaac Asimov novels. This story occurs in the very distant future. The main character is KELAHYA Devona. She is a very powerful warrior, and she's the most powerful weapon of a man named Kronos Dukarian, who is the supreme commander of the Alliance of Stars. Part of her characteristic is that she is part of a mutant kind of human being, excuse me, which is called a minder. These are people who are capable of influencing and reading the thoughts of many of the species in the universe. This comes with a little bit of a problem in that for a minder, if there is a contradiction in their thoughts, it can lead to their death. And KELAHYA's mind is telling her that she killed Kronos Dukarian, who was also her lover. And the other part of her mind is telling her that she could never do such a thing. So the rest of the novel is her trying to figure out what the real truth is. This is a novel that has overtones of murder mystery because we have to figure out what really happened to Kronos Dukarian. And it also has some of the elements of a suspense thriller. The central theme of this novel does deal with deception. Most of the characters are trying to deceive other people for different reasons, some for evil, some for good, some to protect people, some to further their own ambitions. And all of this is the morass of things that she has to travel through to try to figure out her own reality before this conflict in her brain leads to her death, which is what happens to minders. I think that that pretty much sums up most of the novel. It's a race against time. She has to figure this out before it kills her. In the process, she will be looking for some mythological people that no one thought really existed, and so on and so forth. So like I said, it's a space opera. It's a very, we think, very involved story that hopefully will keep all of you enthralled and excited throughout the entire story.
If you're interested in escaping the reality of this world and jumping into another world, we encourage you to also go into our website, because we have created a set of mythologies of everything that happened to create the world in which our main character, evolves. There's a very complex mythologies, and if you like Greek mythologies, you would love it. So I would very much encourage you to check our website if you're interested. And once again, I would like to show you now are a handful of reviews. We've been very lucky to get very good reviews on this novel. This one, that compares us to Isaac Asimov, and that they think that he would love us, tickle us. We were very happy about this review because it's very, very encouraging. The next review is also very encouraging because it appeals to us because the reader understood the detail that was in creating this world. And again, to be put in the same sentence with Asimov's Foundation trilogy, it's really amazing. And the last review that we're sharing with you, although we have many more, really touch our hearts because we love the way that this particular reader understood that this may be a science fiction novel, but it's also a murder mystery. And for our main character is a spiritual journey of discovery. So we're very thankful to everyone that has supported us in this endeavor, but in particular here to Weaving Influence for allowing us to be part of this very august group of people and authors, and to enjoy the very, very wonderful money that we have made as a result of Christy Kerr's Amazon advertising of our first trilogy. So thank you, Weaving Influence, Becky, Aubrey, and Christy.
I love hearing that. Thank you so much. So at this time, we want to share some things with you for those of you who would like to learn more from the authors who have been a part of today's panel. And I want to invite all of the authors back with me as we go through these calls to action. And these will also be in a follow-up email that you'll be able to see later. So if you want to unmute yourself and you want to turn your camera back on, I would love to see your faces again. So we started the hour with Eileen McDargh and her amazing book, Burnout to Breakthrough. I have read and loved the book. We encourage you to buy it on Amazon, and you can contact Eileen if you have a book club, and she would love to facilitate a conversation with your club. And just remember that to move from burnout to breakthrough, you must first break out, stop, look, and listen, determine where your points of control are, focus there, and begin with your mindset and your behaviors. Our second author today was Esther Derby, and she had such a great perspective on change and how ourselves are an important tool in affecting positive change. And we would also encourage you to buy this book on Amazon. And you can read the book as a part of a book club at work, because this approach is most powerful when you work with allies. You can also download the Mapping Your Influence Landscape Guide. And again, we will put this link in our follow-up email. So next we have Winkle Giulioni, and we would encourage you to consider buying the book or the card deck for yourself or the managers in your life. And Julie has a brand new free guide for reviewing performance and development in the year that nobody planned for. And so we would invite you to download that, and we'll also, again, provide that link in the follow-up email. And we would encourage you to give those around you the gift of support for their growth. And I think that we're going to send a PDF of these slides, so some of Julie's great questions will be there for you to use. Next, we have Nate Regier and Seeing People Through, and we would encourage you to go to seeingpeoplethrough.com to buy the book, to download the free facilitator's guide, and that's where you can buy that process communication model leadership profile that Nate referenced. And you may have seen in the chat that my team and I have all taken that process communication model profile and have greatly benefited from the insights we've gained about ourselves and in working together more effectively. In fact, we have a coaching call later with Nate. I cannot wait. So highly recommend Next Element and Nate's work. Adams and Ed Frauenheim also want you to go and buy their book on Amazon. I think that's a theme. And this is the most expensive free webinar you've ever attended by the time you buy all these amazing books. You can download the chapter on confined masculinity at the website link provided. And we want to encourage you to commit to doing a compassionate act. Ed, do you have anything to add on that? One of you Eds? What do you have in mind?
Well, I think if you, with intention, ask or find somebody who is experiencing difficulty, pain, or some form of suffering, and not only empathize with them, but do something to help them relieve that suffering, that would make not only them feel better, but it will make you feel better.
Thank you. David and Victoria shared with us about their book Ascension, and we would love for you to read the book and enjoy it. Once you do that, they would appreciate you leaving a review on Amazon, Goodreads, Barnes & Noble, or any other sites. And they would love for you to share the book with your friends on social media and to follow them on social media and visit their website. I'm sure, David and Victoria, that all the other authors on the call would love it if you do buy their books, that you would choose to leave a review. This has been a really fun journey. And for those of you who have joined us for the 2 holiday book showcases, it's been fun to share this lead up to the holidays with you. We are exploring in the new year whether this idea of a virtual book showcase might be a good one that other authors would want to participate in. And if you, as an attendee of the webinar, would love to see more of these events, I would love to hear from you. And you can email me anytime, Becky@weavinginfluence.com, and share ideas about what might make these showcases even better, or what you liked about them. So please email me. I try to write back to everyone. And thanks again to all of you who joined us today. And please stay safe and healthy.